All these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need.
If you actually see here, we get
And
a
we'll look for a
hard
healthy
dump.
higher
I
low.
would not
don't have
be
the
convinced
pullback
to
across
enter
the
long
structure.
trade.
Hello crypto friends, hope you're doing well. So we're checking in now and we just had another dump very similar to yesterday's action. So that is obviously affecting how these longer term candlesticks look. So we'll look at the longer term, then we'll zoom in, we'll do the comparison again. And right now, Bitcoin, look where we're rejecting from. Right from that 12 period exponential resistance on the daily time frame, not surprising. And you can see we've done this before on the last couple attempts. So it's looking like the top of this move may be in, but this candlestick shape is going to change and I'll show you why when we zoom in. But we know we need a higher low and a higher high to change this trend. And once that happens, we are confident that our weekly higher low has been established. So at this point, we're not too confident. You know, we can have our beliefs and our opinions on what we think is going to happen, but until you change that daily trend, we can't be confident that this weekly higher low has formed. So the daily chart, if this is our lower high and we need to pull back, that would take us closer and closer towards that 6th of the month day. But again, something that I think is a factor is the more people that know about that pattern, the less likely it's going to continue playing out. And we see this time and time again in the Canadian MJ sector. There was a time where the play was very clearly buy strength at the end of the day, sell the gap up open the next day. And that's no longer the case anymore. That hasn't happened in a long time. And it used to be literally 9 out of 10. So there's definitely market adjustments that are made as, you know, people figure out the market and notice patterns and things. So in my opinion, that's likely to be one that changes this time around. But either way, our lower high rejecting from that resistance, we need the higher low compared to 7,058, and then we need to see the bull break. And again, if you've been watching these videos day after day, we started doing this on the 15-minute time frame. We knew we needed to see this same exponential resistance become support, the same trend change. Then we moved to the hourly, then the 4-hour. Now we're moving to the daily, and eventually we'll move to the weekly. So every time something develops in terms of changing the trend, we zoom out and make note of it on a longer-term time frame and see how it's setting up there as well. And it's the same thing applied to all these time frames. So currently on the 4-hour, we are pulling back. And again, it's very similar to yesterday's action. We had upper wicks of profit taking, an all-out dump on high volume, and then a recovery overnight. And that recovery played out really nicely. And we'll look at the shorter-term oversold bounce signal there that I entered the trade on. And we are now pulling back and looking for a higher low. As long as the 4-hour time frame forms a higher low compared to 72.72, the bulls are still in control of this little uptrend. So they obviously want to see less bear volume. They don't want to see as much of a pullback as possible. And then we're looking up at the top of 7,610, the top of this move. So the hourly chart, RSI is down at 40. We can absolutely be extended down further. We dropped yesterday for 3 hours in a row on declining bear volume. So we have something very recent to be comparing it to. Everybody calls these the Bart Simpson patterns with his spiky hair here, but it's pretty similar action. We lose, we grind up the exponential support, we lose it, we dump, same thing, and we're looking for the higher low. So the 15-minute time frame yesterday, we had that oversold dump, and the RSI got all the way down to the low 20s, and it stayed there for a while. So we're watching, is the same thing going to happen this time around? Entered that trade, scaling into 2 positions on that dump, and then sold initially on the bull break here, and then I slept overnight with it and woke up to a much bigger gain than anticipated, and that was certainly nice as well. And again, I haven't been talking about the alert system very much recently, and that's because we are in the home stretch of putting out version 1 of the alert system. What's out right now is our minimum viable product, so it's going to have a lot more features in terms of usability and functionality on the website in terms of watching your alerts and putting them places on the chart and things like that. So looking forward to that launch, and then we'll start talking about it more, and they're still certainly useful, and they're still firing off. So here's Bitcoin yesterday, 15-minute climax oversold alert, 7,283, literally right down at the bottom, and then that bounce played out really nicely overnight. And so, again, these oversold climaxes are definitely fan favorites out there, and 15-minute time frame, we could be looking at that time frame or the hourly time frame, knowing that we are in an uptrend on the hourly and the 4-hour chart. So we're not expecting on the dump to see any kind of longer term RSI levels oversold, but you know, it's a common rule of thumb when we're in a very bullish trend on stocks or whatever you're trading, that the first dump to 5-minute oversold from a very strong trend, there's usually a good bounce there for a quick day trade or a quick flip. And that's been the case in crypto many times. So the point is, when we're in an uptrend, the RSI is not going to get as oversold on longer term time frames. So we need to be using the shorter term time frames to be planning our trades. So right now we're looking to see, can the bulls bounce? They're forming a bullish reversal candlestick. This dump is not as brutal as yesterday. The volume not even comparable. It's not over yet, potentially, so don't want to speak too soon. But so far, bulls pretty happy with the way this is going comparatively. So that's where we stand on Bitcoin. And again, that's what I'm talking about, this daily candlestick. It's going to close shortly, so there's going to be an upper wick of profit taking. But this time frame on the 15-minute, if this bounce becomes significant before that close, that upper wick is not going to be as significant. So again, keep comparing it to yesterday and note differences. Let everything that I just did, less bear volume, that should all stand out and be little clues that you use to establish your game plan. ETH, USD, upper wick rejecting just under the exponential resistance, still clear lower highs on the daily time frame. This may be our lower high, it may not be. We don't have enough information yet. We look at the 4-hour chart and we pull back. Pretty similar to yesterday, big upper wick, pulled back. Now we are trying to hold the 4-hour exponential support that is just making its bull cross. Bitcoin bull crossed long ago. Ethereum is trying to play catch up. It really wants to hold this level, but you can see that if we pull back anywhere above 541.23, that will be a 4-hour higher low. And we did break resistance here, not a very significant break, only by about $3-4. Bulls would have liked to make that less of a double top area, so there's definitely still resistance in the upper 580s. But longer term 4-hour time frame, no big red flags. There is a lot of volume here, and that's because we were seeing some short squeeze like action on Ethereum, which we'll look at on the 5-minute time frame. But you can see clearly the higher low pattern on the hourly has been lost, potentially losing exponential supports, and just due for some consolidation after a very bullish day all day today. So the 15-minute time frame, very clear losing it. But look at these spikes in the volume. Let's look at it on the 5. So these spikes in volume come out of nowhere, and they are bullish, and they're market buying. And what they do is they clear out the ask, so it's very thinly traded, and a little bit of dollar volume goes a long way in terms of moving that price. And there's also the potential. I know that retail like us is not able to short on GDAX, but they're definitely, in my opinion, able to do it if you are larger institutions or playing with the big boys. So there is a possibility that these market orders are triggering some short filling as well, or some short covering as well, and causing the price to move up, because the price is moving up from 574 to $12 move very quickly, and then we had it here again just ramp up in volume out of nowhere, and then a complete 180 turnaround. When I see this kind of action, that's when I put top fishing rather than calling it bottom fishing. I put top fishing sell orders in, just hoping that we see a quick big move out of nowhere and my orders do fill. And then if we see a pullback, there were multiple opportunities here where if you sold on that little spike, you could have rebought for $5 cheaper shortly after. That happened twice. I recognized it and put some sell orders in the mid 580s and the upper 580s, and I got 2 orders filled, and I haven't done anything with that cash right now. But if I wanted to, I could rebuy $14, $13 cheaper just 20 minutes later. So I stick those orders up there just in case this does end up happening, and we'll see if that still sticks around. That's the first sign to me on this bounce that we've seen any real short covering. And everybody was watching the really high ETH shorts chart, as they should have been, but never saw any short squeeze action on the initial bounce. But this is the most convincing short squeeze like action that I have seen. Some people speculating that it might be shorts getting filled, but I don't really see how that is happening there. If you run the price up a little bit and then hope people keep buying on a breakout attempt, but we're not really in the environment that would favor that. So I don't think they're getting filled significant, dollar or coin amounts for their shorts up there. But anyways, it's all speculation anyways. It certainly stands out as, something different going on than what we've seen the entire move up. So Litecoin, clearly the laggard. We could see this yesterday, and it has been the case for the long time. So daily inside bar forming, we rejected from the exponential resistance yesterday. The 4-hour chart isn't doing anything nearly as strong as Bitcoin or Ethereum. So Bitcoin already broke to a higher high, which would be like Litecoin being up in the mid 120s, and Ethereum even broke up a little bit. So that would be like it being in the 123s. Yet here we are down about 4% lower than that. And it's a clear equilibrium pattern forming on the 4-hour with our high of the bounce, low of consolidation, lower high. And the bulls are looking to form a higher low compared to 115. When the hourly chart changes the trend, we'll be confident that our 4-hour higher low has formed. And there's that dump as well on Litecoin. Not as significant. Bounce still playing out. Let's see if it still is on these other names. Still trying to bounce on the 15-minute time frame. So again, it's not as significant as yesterday. And it looks like Litecoin absorbed. Oh, there's that dump. So yeah, not as significant as yesterday. Volume is not comparable at this point. So ETH BTC did get a bull break on the 4-hour time frame. Now we're seeing some pullback after that quick turnaround on Ethereum after those big upper wicks. But we have our high or our low, our high of the bounce, higher low, and we did get tight here on the 4-hour time frame with a bit of an equilibrium and then a bull break. So some nice follow through for Ethereum. That's why I chose it overnight, because I like the setup of this chart. I liked the pretty much I've just liked comparing ETH BTC, the Ethereum chart itself, and then the shorts chart to have me interested in still playing ETH at this point. But that will probably shift soon once this bounce plays out a little bit further. And I did play Bitcoin, like I said the other night, and actually last night. So I sold. Let's talk about Bitcoin on the 15-minute time frame. And this trade, I entered this trade in with the intention of making back what I donated to a friend who was in the emergency room. So this is what I'm talking about with what I feel like money is an energetic exchange between people, and rather than hoarding it and having it become stagnant, I cannot stress how many times in my life that, you know, the more open you are with the money, the more it just keeps coming back. So in this instance, which is a really good example, I entered the trade. I said, all right, I want to make back what I donated. So I exited the first portion of my position, about a third of it, on this initial break. I was talking yesterday how we wanted to break the high of the oversold bounce attempt at that point. So I sold a little bit there. And like I said, I went to sleep overnight because I was confident it wasn't a big enough amount that I needed to worry about a stop loss. And I was confident in the bull's potential for that 4-hour higher low. So I woke up and scaled out a little bit more, a couple more times, much higher than I was anticipating, and ended up getting 3 times the amount that I donated. So I can't tell you how many times in the past few years things like that just happen where I was ready to be out of the trade, break even. And the fact that I went to bed, wake up, and it's 3 times what I donated. So continue to do good things out there is the bottom line. Litecoin Bitcoin chart, still weak, lower highs and lower lows. Daily chart continues to reject from exponential resistance. Again, there's not much action. It's not extremely bearish, certainly not bullish. It's just a slow downtrend that keeps Litecoin one step behind Bitcoin is essentially what this chart is telling us. And Ethereum is a little bit different because it had dumped and now it's seeing a bit of a recovery on a bounce. So that's where we stand as we head into tomorrow. I do still have an Ethereum position. I just lightened it up. Like I said, I sold some in the mid 580s when I saw that short-like action. And still going to keep watching the 4-hour time frame. At this point, my position is small enough that, again, the smaller position, the more big wiggle room you have before you get to a point where you need to stop out or before the loss gets large. So I'm still going to be playing it more as swing mindset with watching these 4-hour time frames. And I probably won't add to this position at this point because the daily exponential resistances are so close. And if we got hourly oversold, then I might try and play around with it. But other than that, I'm just going to be sitting and waiting, and see you tomorrow. Do good things.